like to welcome Amy Roberts from Sparsholt College. Thank you, Amy.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar this evening. I hope you are all well. As you can see on the screen, this evening we are going to be talking about our Racewood Performance Simulator, who is aptly named Charisma. Any of you with an equine background may associate that horse's name with a very famous horse that Mark Todd rode in multiple Olympics. He was a 15-2 black gelding, and we have a 15-2 black mechanical horse. So the students named him Charisma in honor of that fantastic horse. So the horse we are very lucky to have here as part of University Centre Sparsholt and Sparsholt College. As Margaret mentioned, we are based in Hampshire. We are just on the border of Winchester, and our college services Dorset, Hampshire, Berkshire as our main sort of three counties that we connect right in the middle. We are a vocational college here at Sparsholt, so we focus on all courses that have the desire for being outside, and obviously equine is one of those. So very lucky that as the college we are able to use the horse as well as the university centre. As you can see on the screen, the image that is shown is Charisma being used as part of a research project, which we will have a little look at later. So we have the Eventer simulator. So Racewood, the company that manages these horses, they have different types of horses. We've got the most advanced simulator, one of sort of four that are in Europe, and he basically does it all. So Charisma's aim is to be as true to life as possible. He is very like riding a real horse. However, obviously there are many safety features of him that he has that a real horse does not. The fact he doesn't have his own brain is always it's a safe start. And he can do all three disciplines that are seen in eventing, hence the name Eventer. So in an eventing competition, the horse does dressage, show jumping and cross country, and he can do all three of those. He can do up to Grand Prix dressage movements, so again, Olympic standard dressage movements. He can show jump up to 1.20 meters, so his body physically moves that high, and he also replicates distances, combinations and technicalities that you would see when you are riding a horse at a very high level. So not only does he do all of these very fancy things, you know, competing to that high level, but also he has some really great basic settings and functions that are super for maybe the more novice rider and not so advanced. We have all ranges of riders ride him here. So from literally our, you know, students that are coming in, quite novice coming from school, haven't really done that much riding yet, up to we've had Grand Prix dressage riders ride him. And obviously when we opened him, we are very fortunate that Sir Mark Todd rode him himself on BBC South Today. So, and you can find that YouTube clip online. And he had a really nice ride on him and sort of spoke about, you know, how different he feels and how nice it is to sort of feel safe. So features. So he is a dressage and jumping horse in one model. The reason I say this is because Racewood do different types of horses. So they have a dressage only horse, and they have the eventer, they have a racing horse, they have a vaulting horse as well. We're lucky that he sort of combines all those aspects. He can do all the high level test movements. So he does Piaffe and Passage, half pass and pirouettes. But he can do sort of all the movements that you would expect in an advanced dressage test. He has a system called the auto train. Now the auto train is a great way. It's a 2-minute sequence, and we'll start with that when we have a look at him working live. That he's just 2 minutes of him working through all three paces, so walk, trot and canter, and it basically shows a postural analysis of the rider. So it shows where they are using their reins, seat and leg, and he is covered in force plates and sensors, which we'll have a look at in a minute, and that enables you to see where the rider is showing any asymmetry, any loss of balance, whether they're gripping or pulling more with one rein. And he's really sensitive, so it's great. You get a really good overview of what your horse experiences every day, because where horses are prey animals, they are very good at hiding anything that they're feeling, because for a prey animal, the last thing it wants to do is feel weak. So a horse is very good at sort of just making it feel okay and making it okay. Whereas you get on Charisma and he's, you know, he is a giant computer game, and he will tell you that actually it's not okay. So he's really useful for riders who actually are feeling like that they are not symmetrical and that they are potentially hurting or damaging their horse. We have beginner, intermediate and advanced levels in show jumping and cross country. So you could teach someone to jump on him that's never jumped before over very small fences at 60 centimetres. Like I said, up to those 1.20 meter larger, more advanced fences. The model that we've got here, he's got 3 panoramic screens. And he came with a mounting block, because you cannot mount him like a normal horse. Pressure mats that are on the floor. No one has fallen off Charisma. It's a very, very hard thing to do, but obviously if they do, they want to land nice and safe. And he comes with a printer to print diagnostic analysis, the bridle and the reins, because the reins have on them pressure sensors. They have a force tension meter attached to them. We did have to get saddles separately made for him. A saddle company called Childrick very kindly donated us 2 saddles for him. So he has both a jump and a dressage saddle that we're very fortunate to have. And they now sponsor our equine centre, and we have sort of banners all around the arena of Childrick in exchange. So the dimensions, so when you have Charisma installed, you do have to have a separate room for him. Your room obviously needs to be at least sort of 12 foot wide and at least 14 foot long to fit him in with all of the screens. So you can see there with the mats, obviously he's taking up quite a bit of space, you know, nearly 4 meters long and over 3 meters wide. So we need to ensure that there's enough room for him. We've got a nice big room here at Sparsholt, because what that allows us to do is have research cameras and obviously people around each side of him. There's only one no-go place. You don't go behind the screens, because that's where the power cable is, and that's the last thing you want to trip over and pull out while he's mid-sequence. Obviously you may damage him. As you can see from the bottom image there, his head and neck move up and down, so he's fully robotic in motion, and he's bolted onto a runner that's got all the cogs and sort of the computer program that runs him. So he's not easy to maneuver. You can box them up and sort of take them on the road with you, which is what Race would do. But it's just say it's very challenging to do, because you need to put him back exactly the same. So we have no plans to move him around at the moment. We would just like him to stay here for our own use. But he is available to be hired. So anyone external can come in and hire him and use him with us as a trained operator of him. So you do have to go through training to operate him. So I've been talking about the sensors. So as their most sophisticated simulator, he's fully laden with sensors. And when we do the live demonstration, I'll show you what the sensors look like. But essentially, they look at rein contact. So he's got a tension meter on his bridle, on the bit that goes down the reins. He's got pads underneath the saddle, which measure the force and the balance. And they also measure the rider's center of gravity. And on the screen, it's marked by little red dots. The red dot on the screen is the rider's center of gravity, and that moves around with the rider. And then also he's got sensors along the side of his body, which is where you put your legs on. This is why it is incredibly realistic, because you can put on all the same aids that you do on a horse onto him, and he will do the same movements. But the best thing about him is that he'll only do it if you're doing it correctly. So he will very, very quickly stamp out your bad habits and ensure that you are doing everything that you possibly can correctly to benefit your horse. So he won't allow you to continue with anything that you shouldn't really be doing. And as a coach, what I know from a lot of riders is a lot of the time we do things subconsciously. We don't think about the fact that we might be gripping with our right knee or dropping our left shoulder or tilting our head. It's all happening without you thinking about it. And again, our brain has to figure out why we are riding another mammal and why we want to go at this speed and why we want that adrenaline rush. And for some riders, that sort of mental aspect of riding is quite challenging, and they obviously might find it hard to get over that mental block. So he's great for that because he will instill confidence in a rider because you're in a very safe environment here in this room. So here, particularly at University Centre Sparsholt, we use charisma for a lot of research. So this is the room that we're in right now, and that's him in the middle. All those cameras around the outside are 3D cameras. So what they are doing is, whilst the rider is on the horse, they are measuring a 3D image of that rider, and then that then comes into, it can either be a stick figure or it can be a fully animated sort of 3D person, and it copies what the rider is doing into that computer imaging software. So you get a picture of how the rider is moving on the horse. Now, we've completed multiple types of research here. One main area of research that we have had is breast health. So we've had a lot of research done on breast movement in the saddle from when women are riding. And we do know that having the right support is crucial, and that there are, you know, tenuous links to trauma on the breast being caused by exercise, eventually leading to potentially cancer. So it's really important that we train our young riders to look after their breasts, and all the research that we've done on charisma has shown that with the right support, the movement is minimal, if not there at all. So he's been really useful because, again, in a nice, safe environment that women feel comfortable to participate in those research. Most recently, the research has been around rider perception of themselves. So they've ridden charisma in their full competition wear, which generally includes white and tight. So we tend to compete in white jodhpurs or breeches, very tight clothing to accentuate what the rider is doing, because if it's too loose, then it may mask what their aids are. And then we ask them to ride in their normal riding gear, so what they would just wear every day when they're either at work or working with their own horses. And what the research demonstrated is that the riders rode charisma when they were in their normal gear much more softly, much more relaxed, and were more balanced than when they were in their competition gear, which suggests that actually when we put that gear on, we put that pressure on ourselves when we're going out competing, actually it affects our riding. So it's really important that we use a horse like this for that kind of research, so we can move that forward onto you know, our own horses. There's been a lot of research done by centaur biomechanics using mechanical horses, so looking at rein tension particularly, and force plates along the back. There has also been research done on mechanical horses to do weights of rider. Scientific recommendation is that you are now 15 to 20% within your horse's weight range. So if you had a 500 kilogram horse, you should be within 15 to 20% of that 500 kilograms. Now, research on mechanical horses has demonstrated how a rider rides, is in the sense of where their weight actually goes, because there's a classic phrase that a heavier rider can ride lighter than a light rider who rides heavy. And what research has tried to show is that actually it depends on where you're sitting in the saddle. It depends on how much weight you're putting down through your stirrups and how much pressure you're putting on the reins as to how uncomfortable that horse might be with the rider weight. So it's a really important debate, which is very much ongoing, and research will continue for many years. But using mechanical horses to simulate the environment a horse might be in without putting them through any undue stress is really important. And it's very hard to get a research project through ethical approval if it might potentially put extra stress or any pain up on the horses. So using a horse like Charisma is obviously going to get through ethics, and it can still provide us with very significant and valid data. One thing that we mainly use it for day to day is rider position. So this is a session that I've done. This is within one session. The rider on the left, she came in having no understanding that that is how she was riding. Like I was saying earlier, it's completely subconscious sometimes, and you have no concept of that you're asymmetrical. You are not straight when you are riding that horse. And a lot of the time as a coach, I will ask people, how do you sit at your desk? How do you drive your car? Are you left or right-handed? If you do a lot of cleaning, what hand would you clean with? What hand do you write with? Because actually it's all linked. If you sit at your desk with your right shoulder lower than your left shoulder for 9 or 10 hours a day, you will ride with your right shoulder lower than your left shoulder, just like this lady here. When you drive, if you tilt your head or you put your arm on an armrest, you will have slowly an asymmetrical trait building up. And then you come and ride, and this lady, for example, with a position like this, her horse will go very well on the right rein, going round to the right, but it will go very poorly on the left rein because she's so stiff on that left side. You can see the right side of her body is much more relaxed, and she's collapsing through that right hip, which will push the horse to the left. Having identified this and worked with her, and it only takes half an hour to do this, then she left looking like the picture on the right. Now she's not finished by any means. She still needed to come back and do more sessions because you can just see her shoulders are slightly out of alignment, but her head is much straighter. And obviously with her head being the heaviest part of her body and her center of gravity, that is really key to getting straight. She's lifting up through that right seat bone now. You can see even the arch in her jodhpurs now where she's using her core, and her elbows are much further back and a little bit more engaged. So you could make a really short improvement to rider position in a very short length of time. And it's very important that any rider comes and does this. And like I said, we've had Grand Prix riders at the top of their game come and ride him, and we've still found asymmetrical traits because it's what their horses mask, or you know, they sort of say it's the type of horses I ride, whereas he will tell you everything about yourself, and that is why he is such a fantastic, essentially glorified computer game, and we love him very much because he's so useful. So correcting rider position, like I say, is the main thing we do here. We get all of our students on Charisma throughout the year, and obviously we then look at their symmetry and actually have a look at what we can then do working with them on the horse as well. And what we then offer here is actually sessions with trained physiotherapists. So we have a fantastic lady called Hannah who comes in and does sessions with our coaches working on those horses' position. We tend to get a lot of riders who have previously had an injury. That's another question I would always ask is, once you've ridden them on Charisma, a lot of the time you can tell if they've broken a leg, they've broken a hip, if they've had a shoulder injury or a rotator cuff, because they ride very differently because they've had an injury. And we then work with them, with the physiotherapists, to improve that. We've also had Pilates instructors come in and work with them. So they'll ride the horse. We look at the asymmetrical traits. They get off, they work with the physio or the instructor on the ground, try and improve themselves. And then they get back on him to see how they've got a bit better. The two images on the right-hand side, they then also show them using resistance bands. So resistance bands are used to make the rider aware of their asymmetry, so both these riders are dropping their right shoulder. So the band makes them think about, oh, I need to pull my right shoulder up. I need to relax my left shoulder down and push it down into my left heel. And it just makes them more aware of themselves and promotes that self-awareness. And we can work with them just on the flat like this, or we can work with them over fences as well, because perhaps that they're developing an asymmetrical trait in the air, or they're gripping with one leg more than another. Lots of us here have also had injuries, and it's or we're just not fit to ride, and we utilize Charisma to get our students and staff back fit to ride, because he's very good at, you know, sort of looking where you are and seeing what you need to work on. So we do use him for rehabilitation work a lot, I would say, particularly in the evenings and at weekends. And then the last thing we do use him for is we also use him for fun. So I teach the pony club on him quite regularly, and they love riding him because obviously, you know, as a child, he is the coolest thing ever. And he even neighs. You might have been able to hear some of his neighs. And they love riding him because it obviously makes them aware of what they're doing on their own horse, but it is great fun, and they enjoy just having that experience of, you know, riding something that doesn't necessarily need you to be constantly thinking. You can actually just focus on yourself, because those of you on here who may have ridden will know that, you know, when you are riding a horse, you do have to be sort of on your A game at all times. And it's just nice with him that you can just really focus on yourself and really knuckle down on what you need to do better and what you need to be working on, without thinking about, okay, my horse. And most horsey people will mainly focus on their horse. So it's really important that they do focus on themselves. We're moving forward into an industry now that's more about the horse rider dyad. So they must work together to succeed and perform. We're seeing more competitive riders going to the gym, working out, getting really strong than they ever used to, eating well, because it is about both of them now. They are a partnership. And what we also are able to run, so like I do with the pony club, so they work on Charisma, and then they do some floor exercise. So they do a bit of yoga, some strength training, some Pilates, and just to get them really to fire those muscles that when you're riding, you can sort of ignore. Horse riders tend to be very tight in their glutes and their hip flexors, very tight through their upper thigh and lower back, because that's where we absorb the movement of a horse. So it's really important that they go away and work on that sort of area of themselves to try and obviously be better. So what the plan is, we're going to give you a live demonstration of Charisma, and I'm going to show you what he looks like and how he works, basically. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen here, because I'm going to move forward to my camera. And while my lovely colleague, Emily, gets ready to ride, I'll give you a sort of tour of Charisma and how he works. So I'm just going to share my camera screen. So I'm going to I shall show you our room here. So this is our Charisma room. And like I said, so we've got the 3 panoramic screens, and then he comes fully laden with the mats and the mounting block. Like I said, we're very, very lucky to be sponsored by Childeric, who have delivered us these beautiful saddles. We've got both the eventing saddle and the dressage saddle, and we're very lucky to have those. So you can see here, so like I said, he's got those force tension meters on the reins. So this piece of kit here is the tension meter. So that measures how much pressure a rider is putting on down the reins. And then these sensors that are along his side, there's 3 here. So they each measure where the rider's leg is going. And then these are the force plates that sit under his saddle. So they measure the rider's center of gravity. He's fitted to this little here. This is an emergency stop button, just in case the rider is nearly falling off or you're a little bit concerned about them. And yeah, so like I said, we've got the screen here. So like I say, he's essentially a big computer game. So you use the keypad and you dial in what you would like him to do, which is what we'll do now. So Emily will just hop on. So the one thing you can't put your foot in the stirrup when you get on Charisma, because what happens is you might damage the force plates. So the rider just has to swing their leg over just like that, and then gently put their feet in their stirrups. So what we are going to start with is we're going to run through, I said earlier about the auto train system. So we are just going to run through the 2-minute training system. I'm going to pop this up here so I can go and guide him round. And while he's in that sort of 2-minute system, so in this system, he walks and trots and canters, like I said earlier. And what I've done here is I've what you call toggle display. So I've removed the display from the rider's view. And the reason that I've done that is because otherwise what happens is they start watching themselves and they start trying to improve themselves whilst they're running through this program. And it's not really the point. The point is that I'm just watching their balance. I tend to stand here from behind and I just watch them moving. And I just look at that symmetry. I'm looking to see if there's any gripping anywhere or there's any pushing left or right. I'm looking to see if there's a head tilt or the knees are unbalanced. So he'll canter at 60 seconds, Emily. And I just sort of look round just to see what he is doing. We look at the pressure down through the reins. This is him cantering now. So he's done his walk and trot. And he just works through this on both reins. So you can see whether he is, whether the rider is more balanced on the left or on the right rein, basically. And yeah, so he just works through this quite nicely. It's a very nice introduction as well for people who haven't ridden him before. Just pop them through pop them through the auto train, and then they can just feel his movement and feel how he sort of goes. Emily's obviously ridden her whole life as an experienced rider, so she's sort of fully aware of how a horse moves, but we might get some individuals who are quite new to this. And then what happens is at the end of the auto train, which is in 16 seconds, it brings up Emily's full biomechanical analysis and basically gives us information on Emily's position, weight distribution, and any tension she may be holding at the moment, which would be great for us to see in 3, 2, 1. So this is what you get. So this is what we can then print out for our clients, and they can take that away with them. What we tend to do is we would do that at the start of a training session, and then we would do this again at the end to sort of show improvements in the rider. So that red dot there is the center of gravity. So what we can tell from that red dot is that this Emily's center of gravity for this session is just ever so slightly back in the saddle. And we can see it on sort of the saddle. So F and B means front and back. So just a little bit further back in the saddle, which is what we can obviously work on in our session. But you can see here that the rein sensors is perfectly symmetrical left and right. Emily did not grip with her legs throughout that session, which is really important. Riders should not be gripping. They should be really nice and relaxed in the saddle. And these saddle sensors show Emily's left and right movement. So what that shows is, as we come down, Emily's putting a little bit more weight through the right side of her pelvis, down through the right leg. But actually by the end, she's straightened up. So maybe had more awareness in the 2 minutes than she did at the start. And that's, again, we see that a lot in charisma, that actually they just get an awareness of him a little bit more. So that was his auto train. And what I'll do now, so I will go through into his instruction modes. So this is dressage instruction, and now this is where the rider can take control of him. So I have a keypad and I can control charisma. I can get him to walk, trot and canter and do whatever I would like him to do. But it's really important that the rider obviously does that themselves. So the first thing we can do, so Emily, if you just wriggle around in the saddle, what you'll see is that yellow dot, red dot moves, because that is Emily's center of gravity. So as soon as Emily moves, so does that red dot. And we can obviously watch that red dot while we're going through movements. And obviously now Emily's more aware of it. She's naturally trying to put it right into the middle. So like I said, the leg sensors are on the side, and there's 3. So it goes 1 is just behind the rider's leg, 2 is a little bit further back, and then 3 is right back here. And that's for more specific dressage movements. So if Emily squeezes both legs on sensor 2, he will walk on like that. Okay, so then the rider is fully in charge of what is happening here. Now, what you then get on the screen, it comes up live, it gives you a live analysis of what it's seeing. So it's seeing that there's a little bit more pressure in that left rein than there is in the right one. But the front and back is completely normal, and Emily's balance is completely central left to right. So as the horse is swinging, she is also swinging along as well. Now, the other thing he can do, if Emily, it's okay to do this, if you pick up your reins and bring him into he's got a collected frame, so he can shorten his neck and bring himself into a frame. You might have to shorten your reins, yeah, quite short, and then he will bring his head in towards you like this. Okay, so what that mimics is if you were riding an advanced test, he's got 2 head movements. So he's got a nice relaxed frame like this, and then obviously you can shorten him up into that advanced frame. Excellent. So the same process happens again. So if Emily uses both legs on sensor 2, he will go forwards into trot once he's got through his walk paces. Now, again, those of you who have ridden, you might be used to doing rising trot. We can't do that on Charisma because he doesn't have enough momentum from behind. So we do just focus on him going in a sitting trot. Okay, so you can see Emily's got him in his collected frame now. So his head's much more engaged. And obviously Emily can look at the dot and focus on her center of gravity and just focus on her position. And this is lovely for self-awareness. Like I said earlier, it's really important that the riders have self-awareness of their own being. Now the rider can also pop him into canter. So we're going to go left canter. So it's left leg on sensor 1, right leg on sensor 3. And then he pops into canter. So again, so as a coach, he's really great because I can teach a young rider how to go into canter correctly. I can teach them how to use the correct aids. So I can ask them to do different things. And you know, the aid we give is outside leg back, inside leg on the girth, and on him that's sensor 1 and sensor 3. So it completely mimics the aids you would give a horse. Okay, now what Emily can do, which is very fancy, is ask him to do a flying change. So if you put your left leg on sensor 3 and your right leg on sensor 1, he will change to the right. There you go, there's your change. So again, this is great. You can teach more novice riders how to do a flying change. Maybe they're trying to teach their horse. Maybe they've never done one before. So you can teach them how to ride it on him, where the only thing that's going to go wrong is he's just not going to do it. He's not going to get sassy like your horse might. So if Emily just gently takes the reins and brings him forwards to a halt, I say gently, he's only set to 50%, so you might have to give him a good half halt to get him back. And then what we'll do is we'll have a look at some of his other functions. So this is the keypad that I basically use to control him. So I'll just show you the arena setting. So in the same setting as the dressage, you can then take the rider out into an arena, and we have a 20x40, which is commonly used for sort of lower level dressage tests, and then over to the right in the distance is a 20x60 arena. So you can ride him through a dressage test and pretend like you are out competing on him, and sort of obviously there's no judge for the movements, but you can ride all the movements you need to ride and sort of work through your paces that you might need to test yourself on. So there's 2 different arena functions there. And I'll just go back to my keypad. And he also has a really cool function of going for a ride, which is pretty cool. So you can take Charisma for a hack around the I don't know what this is, the plains of whatever whatever they've based this on. So should we take him? We'll take him for a little ride. So pop him into whatever pace you want, and you can ride up and down the hills. And what he does is he simulates basically the pace that you might be in. So he goes a lot faster here. So he's in a medium pace. And once you go into canter, it's medium canter. So it's sort of simulating more of a gallop, because obviously when you're out hacking, you would have a bit more fun than you might, he's going really fast now, in arena or when you're show jumping. So, yeah, so he's going to go uphill, and he'll literally, he rides like he's going uphill. So he sort of moves his body up and down, and he sort of gets to pretend. So the other night I had some children on him, and I had a very nervous child on him, and she just went for a hack, and we just let her, you know, have a really nice canter around and let her trust him. I got her to take her stirrups and reins away, and I just got Emily's going really fast, it's quite funny. And I just got her to have a really nice time, and her mother loved it because she's such a nervous rider. So yeah, this is his hack function. It does stop at the end, it glitches. It's a bit like those of you who might have played Sims before. It's a bit like Sims, that sort of when the person just starts walking into the wall, he kind of does that at the end. So he does stop eventually. Right, we'll stop him here, and then we'll go into our show jumping modes. So again, this keypad is fully controlled. So I'm in full control of him at all times with this. He also comes with this device, which just goes up, down, and emergency stop. So if you've got a rider who's not able to put their leg on, we have also had some para riders on him that obviously we would then control the pace that he goes. Are your stirrups okay? Do you want to put them up for jumping?
I think they're okay.
Okay, fine. We always ask that because you just want to check. So we're going to go show jumping instruction first. Now, what this does, again, those of you who might be horsey, it's a grid. And he will just jump down the grid. He will just jump, 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 jump. And the aim is that the rider just works on themselves. So they don't have to think about anything else. They just think about the fence. And what I can do is I can change the type of fence. So an upright and an oxer, which he jumps bigger. But we'll start with a cross pole. And it says there, 6 strides between the jumps. He will always do 2 more strides to the first fence to help the rider get in balance, and then he'll do the same amount of canter strides between every fence. So I'm going to start him off. So he'll do 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, and he pops the jump. Okay, and then he'll do 6 between every stride. I'm just going to go back here so you can all see. So he does a nice small, so this is when we looked at the presentation, this is him jumping 60 centimeters. It's a nice small fence just to get horse and rider accustomed to it. Like I say, you know, what we're looking for is that the rider is really soft through their back and they're folding really well, which Emily is. She's very soft through her hips and her pelvis. And it gives us the same biomechanical data that we had when we were on the flat. So we'll just do this last one, and I'll just pause him there. And so the screen then shows us the data that we can look at. So again, all I can see here is just a little bit more weight down Emily's right stirrup, which I don't know if you can feel, but ever so slightly down that right stirrup. So it might be if I was working with a rider, I might take their stirrup away, or I might shorten it a hole, or I might get them just to do a few fences without their stirrups, just to try and get them to relax. But he is telling me that data because actually looking at Emily from behind, there's not much you can see that's asymmetrical. So it's really important that we do get this data from him. So we'll make the fence a little bit bigger. And then what he'll do when it's bigger is obviously he jumps bigger. So 8 the first again. So if you look at the movement now, sorry if it's a little bit slow at home, he jumps bigger. He stays in the air for longer than he was before because he's now doing an oxer. And it just allows the rider to have a feel of what jumping that bigger fence would be like. We'll do one more, and then we'll have a look at what he's like in the arena. So again, I'm just in control. So I go back to enter, and that takes me back to my front page. So he has this function. So in the show jumping arena, what he then does is he simulates a warm up. So when you go to a competition, you would warm your horse up first, and then you would take it into the arena. So here he gives you the option of jumping 3 fences as many times as you like before you're ready to go and jump the course. Similarly, he does the same thing with the cross country. So you warm up over the cross country fences, and then you go out onto the cross country course, and he just gives you that time. He's raring to go. He just gives you that time to get used to it. We'll do the show jumping. So and unfortunately, like a lot of computer stuff, there is a small glitch, so you have to go into the put your leg turning on and then go back into it. But you know, I mean, a lot of things aren't perfect. So what Emily can do now, Emily now has complete control over him. And she can put him into walk, trot, canter. She can turn him. She can do whatever she likes. The lines can be ignored or they can be followed. It is completely up to the rider. Okay. So if you want to put him into canter and just have a canter round to start with. So 3 is further back than you think. Yeah, so 1 and 3. So there you go. Lovely. Right. So, and Emily is able to turn him using her reins and her legs. And then Emily is able to aim him towards the fences. And it also, because he will then decide on takeoff and landing, it just gives a more realistic view of the jumping motion. So because he's not doing it for them, they are now in control. It just gives a little bit more of a, you know, what actually happens when you're on a horse, that you actually have to place them correctly and you have to ensure that they're on the right line and stride. And that was a lovely fence there. And the green line just gives the rider a guide. And there's an arrow in the middle of the screen, and that arrow is in between his ears, because obviously the whole aim of riding is to have the horse's ears looking where they are going. Now, I'm not sure if Emily's planning on going out and doing the arena. She's going to give it a go. So you've then done your warm up, and then you can take him out here. So it mimics a simulated event. So it goes out into the event arena. And this is where you've got those bigger fences. So this is where it says he jumps up to 1.20 meters. In this course, the fences slowly start getting bigger. And on all of his settings, he has beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And basically, each setting he does a bit less for you. So we're in the beginner setting today. So he's not asking too much of the rider today. He's just naturally popping round. Whereas in the advanced, he expects you to be on every stride correct, on the right lead, knowing what you're doing. And all of us that have, you know, sort of ridden him for a while now, we've slowly built up to that advanced stage, because you really do need to know him and know what buttons to press to nail it and get 100% on those kind of tests. So he's just popping through that simulated course. And like I say, it's lovely for the rider's confidence. Like that, it gives you a little thing there that says, oh, you weren't quite on the right stride. And as a coach, it's lovely because I can coach them round and I can get them to focus on themselves and their reins and their legs and sort of, are they looking at the next jump and that kind of thing. And that's why he's got the 3 screens to teach the rider to look around where they're going and obviously focus on what's ahead rather than what they're doing now, which is again what we would instill as a coach. You know, and it mimics a good competition arena. There's flowers, there's flags, and it's a lovely setting, particularly if, you know, the rider might be quite novice. It might be sort of mimicking their first show for them, which is lovely to do. I'll stop talking for a minute and just let you watch. So you can see there, he jumped much bigger because that was a nice big fence for him. And it just sort of shows his sort of athletic capacity that he has. And obviously the software that he has made to be able to enable him to jump at different heights is very impressive. Ran over a flower pot. Extra points for the flower pot. Last 2 fences here, we're on the line for home. So when he stops in a second, which is excellent, he naturally just stops and he brings up again this analysis software. So he goes through whether the rider is taking one rein more than the other and whether they're balanced in one stirrup more than the other. So again, we're just linking back to what we saw on the flat, that there's a little bit of a right bias in that balance at the moment. The neckline there, if a rider is leaning on his neck, so this leather pad here is also a sensor. If they touch this, it tells them off, because you shouldn't lean on your horse's neck, because obviously you will put more pressure on them. So Emily didn't do that at all, which is excellent. All the takeoffs were correct. And then it says about gait, because you can have the option to change his canter lead while you're going around the course like you would on a horse. Gives you the time it took you to complete and how many fences you completed. So again, good biomechanical software. And I've used it before, that the rider's done the beginner, then the intermediate, and then the advanced. So they've worked through their capabilities and sort of thought about changing the lead and what they need to do. Okay. So yeah, so those are his main functions. He is pretty cool, and we are obviously very impressed with him and very lucky that we have got him here. They're not really expensive, but they're not that cheap to buy. So we're very lucky that we do have him here with us. So I'm going to stop sharing. And God, my face would have been very close then, team. I do apologize. And I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and ask if there are any questions at all.